tear, it falls and hits the ground. A tree, it falls without a sound. A bird, it calls and sends you home. A man, he sits in the cold all alone.
Hi, Maddie. Welcome to the Joy of Sunflowers. Thank you so much for joining me. Please introduce yourself a little bit more.
So my name's Maddie. I am 31 years old. I'm a mum of a 2-year-old, or soon to be 3-year-old, and I'm currently pregnant with my second. I work part-time as a office manager, and I've also had some experience in pregnancy loss, and as a result of that, have started a community, I guess, or a small community called Heaven's Nursery Project, which it was a space that allowed me, or I wanted to take my pain and turn it into something positive and create this safe space where women or men, whoever has experienced pregnancy loss, can come in and read through stories and feel as though they're not alone, and the feelings that they have feeling are normal, and the grief is normal, and it happens to a lot more people than we think, and there is definitely hope. I think the emphasis I want to put on it, on the entire, uh, experience, I guess, that there is hope, regardless of what you've experienced, and I want to try and exacerbate that hope in those who have gone through that experience.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, and it's so true. And I think what has affected most women the most is the validation. Like that is what women have told me has been the most effective in their healing process. Just that validation and knowing that, one, they're not alone, and two, everything they're feeling is normal in a sense. Like that is what loss and infertility, like that, they're the associated feelings, they're the associated emotions, and what we're feeling is what we're going to be feeling, and we're all kind of like in the same boat in terms of those emotions and feelings. So it's really amazing. So thank you so much for doing what you do. Let's start at the very beginning. Did you always know you wanted to be a mom, or was it something that you sort of moved towards?
No, I knew as a young kid that I was put on this earth to be a mum. I come from a family of 4 siblings. I've always wanted a big family. I've always been surrounded by family, and that's all I've ever wanted. My husband and I both would love a big family. We got married in, when was it? February 2000. When was it? February 2019. We got married. Tried for a baby soon after. It took us about 9 months to fall pregnant, and we fell pregnant with Ari, my daughter. Everything went smooth. Everything was normal. After that, we decided when she was about a year to 18 months, we wanted to start trying again. And I think that's when we experienced quite a lot of heartache. I'm going to get emotional. Quite a lot of heartache, quite a lot of pain and suffering. We didn't realize that, after going through it the first time, we thought it would be easy to just, let's have another baby, but it wasn't that easy. I tried for about over a year until I fell pregnant the second time. And that resulted in a miscarriage. I miscarried at 7 weeks, but the baby was measuring at 5.5 weeks. It was a natural miscarriage. And that was tough. But I don't think I really came to terms, or I think the real trauma behind miscarrying occurred in my second miscarriage. So I then fell pregnant again in June. Sorry, I miscarried in August, June of 2022. I managed to get to about 10 weeks. So I got past the first stage of when I first miscarried, and I thought, oh, well, this is great, it's going to stick. Got to my 10-week scan, went to our 8-week scan. They were like, heartbeat's perfect, everything's great. They made a point because they knew that I miscarried prior. Everything's perfect, you have nothing to worry about. Get to our 10-week scan with the obstetrician, and there was no heartbeat. And it was soul destroying. Sorry. Anyway, I think it was just trying to process the fact that, you know, I thought I was walking around, you know, talking to the baby. My daughter knew about the baby, and just trying to process the fact that the baby's in there, but it's not viable, and it's been in there for a while, but it wasn't alive. And I think that was quite hard for me to process. I ended up having to have a D&C afterwards because I don't think I could fathom passing it or just waiting around to pass it naturally. When I passed it the first time, I could see everything. I could see the head, I could see the umbilical cord, I could see everything. And knowing that the baby was further along this time, I just don't think I mentally could have processed that or been able to get over that. So we ended up having the D&C, and it was it took a while to try and work through that. But as a result, I knew that, you know, as I started, for me, I had to talk about it. It's just my personality. I can't keep things in. And I felt the more that I spoke about it, I realized more and more people have actually experienced something like this. And, you know, yes, I've had 2 miscarriages, but there are some women who I know what I have dealt with, and it's been a struggle for me. But there are women who have experienced stillbirths, women who have experienced miscarriages later, and my heart went out to them. I just didn't want them to feel as though they, you know, that they were alone, or people who have experienced losses earlier, like all the feelings, no matter what stage in early pregnancy loss you reached. It, for me, all the feelings are valid. That you feel like you're broken, it's soul destroying. And I didn't want them to feel like you're alone in it, because it can feel quite isolating, no matter how strong of a support system you have around you. And that's how Heaven's Nursery Project was born.
Yeah. No, like it. Honestly, I have cried a lot during interviews. Some of them are harder than others, like to maintain, because it's hard. Like some of these things that women have gone through and that we go through, like loss is just sucky. Like and the trauma of it is hard. And you know, you had one of those trauma moments that so many mums just dread, you know. You know, that there's no heartbeat is hard, you know. I haven't personally had that experience. Both my losses were before 7 weeks, and the first one was a blighted ovum. So what do you mean that the baby isn't there? Like, what do you mean? It's not developed, it hasn't developed. Well, what does that mean? How does that work? You know, I think, you know, it's all painful and it's all hard, but yeah, when we add those layers of trauma, I think it just, you know, it's and I can understand the not wanting to wait, because my first loss took 2 months to come to just clear out, and it was, waiting that long was awful.
It's awful. And it's almost able to close that door and try and move on from it, because it's still it's still a process. You all you want to do at some point is just be able to shut the door and try and move past it and heal. And it's hard to heal when you're still just waiting for that final passing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I honestly felt like I was in limbo. I just, they told me it was going to take 3 weeks, you know, and 3 weeks passed.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, it should happen any day now. So then it was just like expecting it every day.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's like thoughts that play in your mind, like maybe this isn't true. Maybe this didn't happen. Maybe. You know, this is fine. And then you start bleeding and you're like, okay, well, maybe this is it. Maybe it's just this little bit of, oh, this isn't that bad. Like, this is okay. I can do this. And then the contractions start. And then you're like, really?
I know.
I mean, once you've already had kids as well, like you had a child first, I had three first.
Yeah.
So wasn't on my radar at all.
Um,
But when the labor started, like when the contractions started, I knew. Like I'm guessing you knew too
yeah,
when it was go time. How was that process with the first one? Because you said it was natural. So how did that go?
it actually was. Look, it was probably more physically traumatic because I was bleeding so much they were scared I was hemorrhaging. So I ended up in the hospital, or back and forth from the hospital. But it was, when like some women experience spotting when they're pregnant. And I don't know, but it was in me when I saw the blood. Part of me knew something wasn't right. But in saying that, when I did fall pregnant, I think it was from the moment I did the pregnancy test. I remember sending a photo to my sister-in-law saying, "Is this is faulty? It looks faulty." She's like, "No, you're definitely pregnant." Like something didn't feel right from the start, and I found myself doing pregnancy tests regularly just to confirm that I was pregnant because I didn't feel many changes. Not like my first pregnancy where I was quite sick. This pregnancy, I'm quite sick, all of the normal symptoms that I was used to, I wasn't experiencing. So when I spotted, it was quite, for me, I kind of knew. And I remember calling my husband and then trying to go get a blood test, and you had to wait for that blood test for 24 hours for them to tell you whether your HCG levels were rising. And they kept saying to me, "No, they're rising, everything's fine, but we'll get you in sound anyway." And I just knew, I don't know, for me, I just knew something was wrong. When I went to the ultrasound, I had to hold my bladder so they can get a proper picture. And they did the external ultrasound and then said, "All right, let's go do an internal." So I had to go release my bladder. And as I did, there was just so much blood. And I think I was just hysterically crying in the bathroom cubicle, just because I just knew. And so I didn't even know why they needed to do the internal, but they did anyway. And it confirmed that I had miscarried, but I hadn't passed the entire, what do they call it, conception, which for me is absurd because that's a child. But the medical terms that they use, I don't know, it's hard to get your head around sometimes.
I'm with you. It actually irks me, especially when people say like chemical pregnancy or fetus, clump of cells, all those things. We're a clump of cells, okay? We're a walking, talking adult clump of cells. It does. It gets you. And I think going through loss just kind of like adds to that, because then you're like, no, it's a baby. I lost a baby. Don't take away from that, because
Yeah.
that's taking away from my child that was alive, that was there.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. Like I have actually had someone do that to me.
Really?
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. They apologized, but it was not good.
No, no,
My mama
no.
bear, mama bear, like really like,
Wanted to come out. Yeah. So I think it was anyway. After I don't know. I think I was just bleeding a lot. That they thought it was hemorrhaging. So physically, that was probably more traumatic. But from an emotional and mental standpoint, the second miscarriage really hit home. And I remember sitting in the emergency room waiting to get this D&C. And I turned to my husband and I said, "I feel like I need to." No, that's a lie. The night before, I couldn't sleep and I was going in for the D&C. And so I just wrote my feelings down on paper, thinking if I write them down, I'll feel better. But I didn't feel better. And then when we were sitting in the emergency room, I said to my husband, "Look, I feel like I need to post it." Not that I'm an influencer by no means, but I just, a part of me thought, if someone were to read this, maybe they could relate. Maybe they know that they're not alone and it's not as isolating as they seem. And if they ever wanted to talk about it, I can talk about it with them. Not that I'm an expert, but just know that there is someone who has gone through what you've gone through. So I posted it and I was nervous to do so. But when I did, the feedback that I got of from people just either saying, "You're really strong for sharing this, thank you," or, "I've gone through this." People I've known for so long who I wouldn't have known they've experienced a loss, but they opened up about it. I think seeing me open up or reading my story encouraged others to open up about it, and that's what brought on Heaven's Nursery project. I thought if I could have this influence, or not influence, but if sharing my story could evoke this type of a response from a smaller community, then maybe at a bigger community, people might be able to find a sense of belonging or a sense of, just being a part of the 1 in 4 community that no one ever wants to be a part of, but it actually is a huge community that many people are a part of, and there should be some type of uniting factor there. Does that make sense? I feel
Yeah,
like I'm,
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, no,
No,
it's true. So true. And I think, I mean, that's a big part of why I started the Joy of Sunflowers, because I felt like there was a lack of that safe space, and like having those resources of like women's stories, like being able to watch a video, being able to connect in that way, but in a safe place that's not like YouTube or somewhere where you're going to get those triggering things as well. Because I find as well, like, it's really sickening, but sometimes when you go on there, they give you pregnancy ads.
yeah.
You're watching a miscarriage video and there's pregnancy ads. Because I remember when I went on to YouTube, because that was the first place I went, because I didn't know anywhere else to go.
Mm.
And yeah, like straight away, pregnant woman in my face. And I was like, are you kidding me? This is like being kicked in the face. You
I
know?
remember I was going to BNC, and it was at Royal Women's, and when they wheeled me in, they parked me in front of a big screen of, it was National Breastfeeding Week or something, and all these mums breastfeeding their newborns, and I'm in this wheelchair, I'm strapped up, I can't move, but it's just staring me in the face while they do all of the paperwork, and I'm just like, this is just it's absurd. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. There's no, like, lack of sensitivity. It was nuts. It was just surreal. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I don't understand how they just don't think. Like,
I know.
but then like I've heard so many women say, that they knew their baby had died and they went into the labor ward where there's loads of women who have just had their babies and they're like giving birth to their silent baby.
Yeah, it's hard.
And I'm like, that's awful. Like, because they're, hearing babies and then
Mm,
their baby do that, I was like, that's actually disgusting that
mm.
that hospitals do that. They need to have, I was like, they need to have like a soundproof room or something.
Yeah, I know. I
Extra
think that,
soundproofs.
and that's why I gravitate towards Pink Elephants support network as well, because they're trying to make a difference there. The fact that there really isn't a foundation for women with early pregnancy loss, or uh, just early, like, child loss within 28 days of life. Like, there really isn't a foundation there for them. There's, and they're trying to make a difference there, and I support that. I think it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be amazing if there was like a hospital type place, but that's like more like a hotelish. Like, I know that sounds weird, but like, but if you're going through a miscarriage, you can go there, stay there. People will look after you, talk you through it. There's like that would be awesome. Could you
Yeah.
imagine? That'd
No,
be so cool. I don't know if they can do that, but that would be really awesome if someone did that.
I know that the one thing that helped me get through definitely the second miscarriage was hearing stories of women who had experienced loss but continued on to have the family of their dreams, or continued on to have the child that they always wanted. And I believe, I guess it was that element of hope that, this isn't, yes, this feels horrible, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there are greater blessings awaiting you. And, I truly believe that everything does happen for a reason. And that that's what helped me when it came to processing my grief, was just knowing that this door was, God closed this door, but there's another door waiting. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. And I think, I mean, faith helps a lot, like
Yeah.
going through this. Like, I didn't want to pick up the Bible like at all for the first one. I was
Mm,
like, didn't even want to touch it. I was so upset and I was angry, you know. And
mm,
then my second loss occurred, and then I was like, I don't want to be angry and I don't want to be upset. Like, I want to be okay, you know. I know I'm never going to be the same, but I want to be like okay to
mm,
do the day, you know. And then I did pick up my Bible, and there's so much comfort in there. It's ridiculous and so validating as well. Like I
mm.
found have you had any experiences like with the Bible and feeling that validation?
Um, Look, I have quite a strong relationship with my faith. I do believe that this was the work, without trying to, push faith down anyone's throat. I do believe this was the work of God, and there was a reason behind it. And as things have eventuated, it's clear that these miscarriages saved me from further heartache. I believe wholeheartedly. Just with um, tests and things that were run afterwards. Just you can't explain the doors that were open and the people that were put into your path as things progress. And my only explanation for that is God. So I believe it was a form of protection for me. Anyway, it took me a lot to get there, but yeah, I don't know. I'm hesitant to throw, force religion down people's throats. But for me, it was definitely my faith that got me through, that helped me heal, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm this event is just about people expressing what helped them through and what they did and their thoughts. You know, if someone doesn't like someone talking about religion, then they can, move on to another person's story, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we share those things that helped us through, whether it was spiritual um belief in Jesus or whatever it was, even
Mm.
if it was just being, and pushing through, because it could help anybody, and we
Yeah.
don't know who it's going to help.
Yeah.
um when it comes to faith, I know that something that helped me was just knowing that God is good, and this
Hmm.
bad thing that happened wasn't him. Like
I
that's what I have in my head. Like, he made good of it by, like, I don't know, like giving me this, I don't know, thirst, longing to create something out of the pain. um,
mhm.
and then being able to meet so many amazing women. And I think that for me has been how I kind of got through it. Like, God made good. God's
Yeah.
made.
Yeah. I completely relate to that. I believe, what God, when God created the world, after every day he said, and it was good, right? So he only creates good. I
Yeah.
believe that miscarriages or the heartache that I've experienced was definitely a form of protection. Um, uh, and he didn't cause those bad things, but there was a blanket of protection there. And I believe, similar to you, going through it has allowed me to try and turn the pain into something positive and make it something light and healing, or do what I can. I'm sorry to let create some sense of comfort and support for those going through something similar. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I hadn't experienced what I have.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And also just moving forward, even like with this pregnancy, I believe that we've run tests. I've got some type of syndrome, antiphospholipid syndrome, which causes blood clotting, and this is what they think caused my previous miscarriages. But even the progress, the series of events, you know, the way I was able to meet someone who was willing to test me, but a lot of doctors won't test you within the first, yeah, unless you've had 3 or more miscarriages. I was able to get to the bottom of it, and I was able to overcome this and continue on to have another child, which again, you know, I believe was a blessing from God. So it does come back to faith for me, but also just sharing my story and being able to talk about it with others and allowing people to feel comfortable that they can share their story and it's okay, and there's no right or wrong into how you're feeling, whether you lost a baby at 6 or 7 weeks. That doesn't make it any less painful than someone that's lost it at, you know, 20 weeks. Pain is pain, and I think everyone should have a platform where they can express that and you know, heal from it as
Yeah.
a result.
Yeah. So how did you get your diagnosis? Like was that a long process?
I and the thing is, the way that people come into your life cannot be explained other than by faith, right? So I somehow managed to be in touch with this unbelievable fertility specialist or naturopath, who who took me on and was willing to run all these tests, even though my obstetricians who completed my D&Cs or who had been with me with each miscarriage said, you know, it's just genetic. Oh, there's something clearly wrong with the baby. But yeah, this naturopath was able to run these tests, work with another obstetrician who was willing to order, you know, these ultrasounds, these blood tests. And within the month or so that she saw what was out of whack according to my bloods, and gave me vitamins and supplements to help regulate this. We weren't allowed to try for 4 months, and she would continue to monitor us. And then when she felt that, you know, the body, everything was regulated, she said that we could try, and we fell pregnant the first time. Now I've still got to do during this pregnancy is quite a tough one. It's pregnancy after loss, which, I mean, having experienced the no heartbeat in an obstetrician's office is it can be traumatic, and there have been instances where I've just been so nervous and burst into tears every single time they do scans, because I'm waiting to hear, I'm sorry, there's no heartbeat. But I guess I'm also hopeful and at peace that, you know, this journey, I've been on this journey for a reason, and it's gotten me to this point, and I'm at peace with where we are now. So I struggle with that. But yeah, I have to take precautionary measures. Like I have to, you know, have half an aspirin every night, or I have to inject Clexane every day. And there are, you know, it's a difficult pregnancy, but I'm grateful that I've gotten to this point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally resonate. I'm also pregnant after loss.
Congratulations.
I'm 28 weeks. So yeah, I completely understand what it's like. Like I lay in that radiology clinic, and I'm just like, I feel really numb, you know, and they show you the baby on the screen and the heart and everything, and you're just like, yeah, I still don't know if I'm taking that baby home, you know. But I mean, for me, the one thing that's been getting me through is I'm pregnant right now.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm pregnant, and no matter what happens, I'm gonna love this baby. And if I lose this baby, then, you know, maybe I am done having kids. But I know that, you know, I love that baby, and, you know, the baby's in heaven with its 2 other siblings, whatever they are, because I don't know whether they were boys or girls, because
Yeah.
I don't have any testing or anything. So yeah, so siblings here or siblings there, either way, the baby won't be alone. So that's something that's been getting me through, but it's definitely difficult in moments, like if you don't feel kicks for a while, or if you're like feeling off, like, oh my gosh, am I sick? Did I like get food poisoning? And
Yeah.
then you hear some stories as well. Huh?
Yeah. You overanalyze everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and like when you're doing what we're doing, like where you're hearing all the stories and you want to connect with all these women, but then when you're hearing some of the stories, you're like, oh, well, she was like 20 weeks. Oh, well, she was like, or she was right at the end. And so the naivety is gone like completely, you know,
Yeah.
you just know. You just know a lot of stuff that can go wrong. And you're like, okay, so when's that gonna happen to me, but every pregnancy is different. Someone said that to me and I was like, yeah, that's a good thing to keep in your mind. Every pregnancy is different, every baby's different,
Really.
and it's this pregnancy is not the same as the last one, so
Yeah.
you don't know where it's going to go. And I was like, that's a good way of looking at it. I will
Mm.
try and hold on to that.
Mm.
Which
It's
I
true.
mm,
It's every pregnancy is very different. And if you aren't feeling a certain symptom that you were in the previous pregnancy, it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, but your head, given your past experiences, just goes there. And I remember I was about 7 weeks with this pregnancy and my boobs stopped hurting. And I freaked out. I was like, I need to go do a pregnancy test right now. Like I immediately freaked out. Mind you, like totally normal for your boobs to stop hurting, start hurting, you feeling sick and then having a good day. I used to take good days as a sign that something bad's happening instead of accepting and appreciating the fact that it's a good day you're not sick. Like enjoy the fact you're not sick. Yeah, so I'm trying to get better at it. But it's true. It's all very different, and I'm grateful to have gotten this far, and I'm accepting of the journey, I guess.
yeah. Jennifer from your pregnancy haven, she really helped me with something she said about faith. No, sorry, something she said about hope. So what she said about hope was hold on to it. Like when you have those little moments, because we all have them, right? We're like, oh, like, I'm pregnant, or like, oh, this is going to be really great. And you have those little moments of like possible memories, like this is what it would possibly look like. This is what she'll possibly feel like, or he'll possibly feel like.
Mm.
She was like, hold on to those moments and let them sit with you. Like, let yourself feel them and
Mm.
experience them. And then if you can, grow them, you know,
Yeah,
to grow that hope, because it doesn't matter whether you hope or not, it's still going to hurt if something happens.
yeah,
And that took me a little bit of time to like let that set in and be like, okay.
mm.
But yeah, the first loss caught me like completely blindsided. The second one, I didn't feel any hope at all. I was like, I'm going to lose this baby.
Yeah,
And then I was like, I don't want to feel like that ever again,
yeah,
because feeling that miserable and being like, I'm going to lose this baby didn't help me and
yeah,
didn't feel okay. And I could have enjoyed that 1 week that I knew I was pregnant and that I was pregnant. Like I could have,
yeah,
instead, I was miserable and I felt so distraught. And then I had even longer of this, like the pain.
mm.
This time I was like, I'm gonna feel good. I'm gonna feel, like things are gonna be okay.
Yeah,
Obviously that didn't like go like that. It took taken time. But
yeah.
that hope thing really, really resonated with me. So hopefully it helps you. I don't know.
No, thank you. It's true. Like I said, it is hope that actually has helped me get to this point. I remember we were in the hospital now at this point. I had shared the story and I was getting these emails come through, or like these DMs coming through. And one friend shared a story of her sister who, had two miscarriages, but went on to have four beautiful children. Right. And my sister in law similarly, she had a miscarriage at the start, but went on to have three beautiful children. And it was again that hope. It was that hope that, yes, loss is prevalent, and it's unfortunately common. But it's not the end of the road. It doesn't have to be the end of the road. And that for me was the hope that I held on to. I knew that, we were bound to have more children. I was going to make that happen. And and it's possible for anyone. anyone who's gone through it, that it doesn't have to be the end of the road, and it doesn't have to happen straight away, and you can take however long needed to grieve, but it doesn't mean that it's not meant to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think, when you've reached your limit, like when you've had enough, like where that door is. And it's just a case of like understanding that when that door is there and you're ready to close it, don't feel bad about it and don't feel like you didn't try. Like if you haven't gotten the result you wanted. But if you're not ready to close that door and you're like, no, I'm adamant, I'm determined, then keep going. Like you don't have to stop if that's what you're feeling you have to do.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's God led and what's not. So it could be, it could be partly him like being like, no, keep going, we just don't.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to close that door, don't close that door.
Yeah.
I know a lot of women, they're like, should I close that door? I don't know. Like, do I want to, like, I need to think about this door. And it's like, no, you don't. You'll
Mhm.
know. You'll
You
know.
do know.
Like everyone I've spoken to, they're like, yeah, like this is it. Like I'm done after this. Or
Yeah.
I've spoken to a few women where they have already finished and they were like, I knew exactly when. Like I could even tell you exactly how I felt, like what I ate that day. Like
Yeah.
I knew like it was time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're pregnant now. So
Mhm.
how has that been going? I know you said that you've had a lot of like moments, especially in the radiology area of things. But
Mhm.
how is your day to day? Like my day to day could be, I'm usually okay now, but obviously I still know anything could happen, but I've kind of accepted like whatever happens.
Yeah. I think my day to day generally I think I'm at that point where I'm okay. I feel as though I'm pregnant. If this isn't meant to be, I I can say to you now I'm okay with that. I believe I'll get to a point that I will be okay with that. Um, Look, it chops and changes. I think as appointments come up, there is naturally a sense of anxiety that goes on. Um, I think that during this pregnancy, also, the introduction of new medication from obstetricians and things due to this syndrome that they think I have, but they can't confirm because I am now pregnant. I think that's been confronting, and something that's been hard to digest. But overall, I think I'm at peace with this journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I,
that makes
you know,
sense.
yeah, I think whatever's meant to be will be, and I just trust that I'm meant to be on this path for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to put the same in my own head as well. Like I know a lot of people don't like a lot of women in this lost space don't like that whole like, oh, everything happens for a reason. Like there's a real mixed bag. There's like half of the women love that and then half of the women don't. So,
Yeah,
you never know who you're gonna get in a room. But yeah, I try and sort of lean into that in certain circumstances, like with, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. Um so yeah, I mean that like all those mindset shifts can help with just getting through the day.
yeah, yeah. And I think what's helped me though is just being so open about it. Open about previous losses, open about my feelings. Like even now, I can have days where I can tell the same story about my second loss to someone and not shed a tear. But for some reason today, telling you this, I just burst into tears. But regardless, sharing that story and knowing that there are other women who have gone through something similar, um, it's definitely helped me get to this headspace where, you know, I'm just at peace with what has happened, what will happen. Um, I I'm not going to pretend to know God's plan. I don't know what it is, but I just trust that that, I'm here for a reason at this point in time, and the journey has been what it is for a reason, and I accept that. And I try to appreciate where I'm at, and again, like you said, just find that joy and find that hope. I've got a bump now. I never made it to a bump the last 2 pregnancies. You get to see my child, coming up and kissing the baby, and these things. I just want to enjoy those little moments. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I won't lie, there are moments where I think, oh gosh, if I were to lose this baby, how do I explain that to a 2-year-old? But again, it's out of my hands, right? Like I don't know. I'm just at peace with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it can be quite tricky to explain it to kids. They're interesting little things when you tell them, what's happened. I know my 4-year-old, she's turning 5 soon. She found it really hard to understand like what happened, because she kept saying like, oh, the baby. I'm like, mummy doesn't have a baby anymore, and it hurts. Like, it cuts so much deeper when I have to continually,
I know,
explain it. But at the same time, it's also been a really beautiful experience, because then I explained to her that if we had those 2 babies, then I wouldn't be pregnant with this one, because they were all in the same pregnancy time span.
Yeah,
for me. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's been very trying and interesting. My 2-year-old doesn't know anything.
yeah.
So don't know if you'd be able to explain that to a 2-year-old. But definitely 3 and a bit, I've heard, will not necessarily get it, but you can kind of tell them about it, and they'll like eventually get it.
My year-old, so she was 2. She turns 3 in June. So she was 2 when I miscarried both times. The first time, I don't think she got it. The second time, she got it, and she kept saying baby in mummy's tummy, like similarly. And I kept trying to explain to her, no, that there's 2 babies up in heaven. They're watching over us. They're our little angels. And it took a while for that to click. This time she gets it, and she also knows that there's 2 babies up in heaven, and she will try and say, when this baby comes out, will my 2 other babies come down? And so like, it's really endearing, to be honest with you. But it's a hard conversation to have with kids, and you're right, when you have to continually say it to them, it tugs at heartstrings as well, because you have to relive it. But yeah, it's endearing. Their innocence is so endearing.
Yeah. They just
Yeah.
are so innocently, and so just like with love, like,
Yeah, I know.
it's been the best. It's been the best and worst. Like, they like, just, it makes you cry. Like,
Yeah,
some of the things that they say and ask. And I'm sure, like, as she grows up, she'll probably continue to say things, and then there'll be tearful moments. Because my kids have definitely continued to say things here and there that have just like, oh, like, oh, I have to deal with that now. I'm gonna cry a little bit. But it's really beautiful. And I hope that that just grows her faith and her bond with you, and with the baby that you're carrying now. And I like that she says when. And I have my kids say when.
Yeah.
But I still say if sometimes. Like, I'm trying to say when more.
I encourage you to say when.
Yeah, I'm trying very hard to say when more.
I can understand why you would say if.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when you say when, it helps change that mindset. Do you know what I mean? It helps encourage that element of hope that you were telling me to hold on to, by even just the terminology you use to describe the pregnancy.
Yeah, I've been working really hard to say when, because the kids, they're excited, and they, and whatever happens. But their view of it is when.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to tap into that more as well. And I think that that has been something beautiful and helpful when it comes to kids like we've lost, because yeah, they're so like, so when the baby comes, like, can we have a birthday party? And I'm like, the baby's not gonna want a birthday party like straight away. Like,
Cute.
so good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, is there anything that you wanted to share about what you do with Heaven's Nursery?
So with Heaven's Nursery Project, I'm trying to continue its legacy. I mean, I had dreams, big dreams of growing this into some huge event that eventually will be an annual thing that we can have tables, almost like a gala. Like this is what I had dreamed for it. Of course, life gets in the way with work and a toddler and, you know, a difficult pregnancy. It's exhausting. And so the last thing you're thinking about is putting on such an event. But I do hope to start with hosting, you know, a morning tea where women are invited to come along. There'll be speakers and there'll be raffles to try raise money for Pink Elephants Network. um, that's something I look towards hoping to do. But also I received such a positive response sharing stories on this Instagram page, um, uh, from people who found a lot of comfort in reading these stories. Some I understand that sometimes it might be hard to digest, reading stories like that continually, but I feel as though many have been able to read through it and feel like, you know what, I know that feeling, I felt that, or I've experienced that same thing. And it's rewarding for me to know that those stories, putting them out there and creating a page that people can just click on and visit, has created some element of support and comfort for others.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, all of these sort of groups and platforms that, you know, you women like you create, I think they do go a long way to just help the grieving process. And like, you know, we don't know who women are going to find. Like, they could maybe just see you. They could maybe just see one of the other speakers I've spoken to, or see someone else. And just
Yeah.
that, just sharing that one moment, that one story can change someone's life and change their whole view of everything.
Mm.
So yeah, it's so amazing what you're doing, and so great that you're sharing that. So thank you.
And same to you. I think what you're doing is amazing. And I could imagine, you know, as you mentioned, there are certain people at different stages of grief and loss. And you are willing to speak to everyone despite where they're at, and having to navigate this conversation, around those who are at different stages and who have different beliefs. I think that takes a lot of courage, and I commend you for doing what you're doing. I think it's amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been interesting, and I find it even more interesting when, you know, with all the different thoughts and the different beliefs and views, and just how people can move through the hard times. And there are so many strategies and so many ways that we can, you know, get through grief. Um, and yeah, I think it's beautiful, it's ugly, it's horrible, it's joyful.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really crazy emotions that we feel through this process. And before I'd been through loss, I didn't realize you could feel all the things at once. I was
I know.
like, oh no, what? You can feel joy and like absolute complete heartache destruction at the same time. This is insane. um, but yeah, you really can. Is there anything that you'd want to say to anyone who's maybe going through this right now, who is in the thick of loss, or is in the same boat as you, who's pregnant and kind of trying to take it day by day and feel that hope?
Those who are in the thick of loss, I think it's important to know that they're not alone, and the feelings that they're feeling are justified. And you can have days where you just don't want to face the world, and that is completely normal. And up and down emotions is completely normal. And that I just encourage them to not feel like they have to keep it to themselves. They, by sharing your story, not only have I found it quite cathartic, but I feel like it is a form of healing, and they might in return receive some type of additional hope, additional support. It could open up the doors for a lot more than if they have to deal with something internally, because no one should suffer alone. I truly don't think that that's fair, and no one is made to deal with this type of thing on their own.
No, I don't think so either. And I think I always look to Jesus, because he cried when Lazarus died, even though he was going to raise him from the dead, right? He cried. And I said to my husband, Jesus showed us how to act when it comes to loss. That is, that is the acceptable way to act, and that's fine. We're allowed to cry, we're allowed to feel pain, we're allowed to even be angry sometimes as well, but we're allowed to cry, and that's okay. We can cry over someone else's loss as well, that's fine. That's why I don't even look at women's stories before I do these interviews, because I don't want to be filtered. I don't want to come on here and be different than who I am. I want to be natural with you, and if you're hurting and you've got pain, I want to be there with you, and so yeah, I've cried many times in these interviews, and you can usually see I go red in my eye. You've probably seen it a couple of times while we've been talking. So yeah, I think that is so important to show that, because we're human, and it's hard, and we need to share those tears and those moments, and it's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset. So yeah, thank you so much for talking with me and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for giving me the platform. I appreciate it, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. I hopefully won't need that luck, but I think I do.
I think what you're doing is amazing. So I'm really in awe of what you do. So congratulations for getting as far as you have. Having as many speakers or people who have been willing to sit with you for an interview is outstanding. I'm thoroughly impressed. So congratulations. You should give yourself credit where it's due.
Well, it's a lot of liaising and a lot of messaging, and I'm now a serial spammer apparently on Instagram.
Hey, that's
you've messaged a lot of people when you're always in their spam folder. I was like, how do people end up in that box? Now I know. Yeah, it's been lovely to speak to you. Please continue what you're doing. It's amazing. And if you do start that tea room, let me know, because I will link it below, because this video library will be up for hopefully forever. And so I'll just keep adding to the resources and adding to the directory and everything. So yeah, if anything changes with you, let me know, and I can link it below, and any articles, and I'll definitely be linking your website and everything like that as well. So if there's anything else that you do, I don't know, if you write a book, if you do whatever it is, just let me know. Yeah, there's so many women who are like, I'm writing a book, but I don't know if I'll finish it. I'm like, you can do this. Let me know if you do. Because yeah, everyone's story is important, and there's so much more to your story than this hour.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know. Yeah. I appreciate
I'll be praying for you. I'll be praying for your baby.
you.
And
Thank you.
Yeah. Hope to.
Right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Please note that all speakers, including experts and professionals, express information, views, and opinions that should not be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any medical conditions. If you have a medical issue, please consult a qualified professional. Speakers voice their own views, opinions, and conclusions, and they may not reflect the views, opinions, and conclusions of other speakers. Ella Rose, The Joy of Sunflowers, and its sponsors may not endorse all or any of the views, opinions, or conclusions expressed.